my name is Ryan Cam, and welcome back to the 1996 Project, where I'll be covering as many movies as humanly possible and reviewing them from the year 1996. And as we close out the month of June in this project and in real life, 96 has been a bit of an odd year just overall because it's either just peaks or valleys with like no in between. And just a lot of just flavorless, odorless dramas with people who are like, oh, I've seen you before, but would go on to do much better things. And to start things off this week, it's no different because we're covering the directorial debut of one James Mangold. It's called Heavy. Heavy was directed by James Mangold, who would later go on to direct movies like Walk the Line, Logan, and Ford v Ferrari, and it starred Liv Tyler and Pruitt Taylor Vince. It tells the story of a man named Victor, played by Vince, who lives and works in an incredibly small town, a very small little diner on the side of the road. He lives with his mother, played by Shelley Winters, who loves him but is also very overbearing. But one day in the diner, Victor meets a young girl named Callie, played by Liv Tyler, and immediately falls in love. However, he is incredibly introverted and doesn't know how to approach. So instead, he obsesses and obsesses and obsesses over her. James Mangold would have a pretty storied career after this. Like I said, directing movies like Ford v Ferrari, Walk the Line, and Logan. He would also go on to direct The Wolverine, which, as time goes by, I've gained a new appreciation for. He did Copland a year after this, and that movie's great. The less said about that Indiana Jones movie, the better. But point is that James Mangold is very good at what he does. Unfortunately, this one very was just very ho-hum to me. Liv Tyler is there. I feel like she's trying. The heart of the movie, though, is Pruitt Taylor Vince. He tries his best, but there's not really a ton of material here other than Victor is sad and alone and lonely, and he just doesn't know what to do with himself. And then you have his mom who is just worrying about him every step of the way. And it gets real old after a while. This movie just feels very sad and depressing. And just like I said at the top of the video, there's just a great array of just these dramas with these big names, and they just feel very interchangeable to me. And this is one of them. And this got a lot of festival love too. So this one is a bit of an odd duck, but just this one was just I was forgetting it as soon as I was watching it because it just was one speed. It was like these people are sad. Like talk about something else now. This movie's very forgettable, and it is safe to say that James Mangold would go on to do much better things after this. It wouldn't even take him a year, but we'll get to Copland when we get there. But next up, I'm going to be doing a pair of documentaries with this one and two of the honest to God hidden gems of this entire project. First up is Paradise Lost: The Child Murders at Robin Hood Hills. It's a very long title, but it's really good. Paradise Lost and the rest was directed by the duo of Bruce Sinofsky and Joe Berlinger, the latter of whom would go on to direct Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2. They can't all be winners. And it tells the story of, well, the true story of what is known as the West Memphis Three. In 1993, three kids were arrested, Damien Eccles, Jason Baldwin, and Jesse Miskelly Jr., of murdering three very young kids in the Robin Hood Hills of West Memphis, Arkansas. The case was strange to begin with, but because they were assumed to be Satan worshippers because of their love of Metallica and Stephen King books, yes, they were end up arrested. They gave questionable confessions and ultimately were sentenced to, well, to put it rather bluntly, Damien Eccles put on death row and Miss Kelly Jr. and Baldwin giving multiple life sentences. And this movie covers the arrests, the trial, and everything in between. I went into this documentary knowing next to nothing, but with these year projects, unless I have prior knowledge, I don't do a ton of research into them. I usually look up after I watch it. This movie made me mad, like in a good way, because I kind of buried the lead, but this is a very well done documentary. Honestly, it's one of the best true crime documentaries that I've ever seen. But it will make you mad because of just how all over the place like this whole case is from the very beginning. You just get the feeling that there's just something not right here. There's facts that are, I guess, not deliberately being misplaced, but just being misconstrued or just assumed because these kids, Eccles, Baldwin, and Miskelly, like come from, let's just call them broken homes, and they have like these out there hobbies, or I guess out there for 93. And so you just look at this and you just go, really? Like a little more attention could have been paid. I'm just saying. But what makes this documentary so great is just how raw it feels. This feels very much formalist, very much on the ground. Like there's editing, yes. There's actually a great soundtrack here contributed by Metallica themselves. They contributed their music to this royalty free. They collected nothing from this because they heard about this case and it's like, you know what? You can have it. Like, have fun, filmmakers. And the soundtrack's great. I rediscovered Welcome Home Sanitarium off the Master of Puppets album. That song's great, but side road. This documentary is just so well done because of just, like I said, just how raw it feels. You're in the cut, if you will, with all of these people. These are just normal folks, like living their lives and their lives of not just the not just the alleged murderers, but also their families. Like Eccles becomes a father while sitting on death row at 18 years old. I cannot imagine what that must be like. And kind of spoiling it a little, the West Memphis Three were later freed after new DNA evidence showed that they were pretty much innocent, and they're now living normal lives, so there is that. There were actually two more movies made after this as kind of a unofficial trilogy of sorts. But if you go into this movie with the fact that this I won't go so far as to say this is the birth of true crime, but I feel like this is one of the ones that really got the formula done right. Then definitely check this one out. This is getting an amazing grade from me. One of the best and one of the most out of the way hidden gems that I've covered on this whole project. So now we flip the documentary coin over and we cover the other side. We cover A Perfect Candidate. A Perfect Candidate was directed by David Van Taylor and R.J. Cutler. The former would go on to direct many documentaries about music afterwards, and the latter would go on to direct movies like If I Stay and the John Belushi documentary that we got a few years ago. It tells the story of the 1994 Virginia Senate race, where Oliver North, tries to run and get the Virginia Senate seat, all while trying to fend off allegations of the whole Iran-Contra thing and trying to stave off his Democratic challenger and the incumbent in the race. And it's all seen through the documentary lenses and the eyes of a Washington Post reporter. And similar to what I talked about with Paradise Lost, here what I love so much about it is just how on the ground it all feels. Like it's very rough. There's no real again there's editing, but there's nothing really done to doctor anything beyond we're on the ground with these campaigns as they stump to try and get into the Senate. So it's just there's something quite fascinating about that, at least for me anyway. But I love seeing just I love seeing just the inner machinations of what makes a political campaign work. If there's just parts of politics that I just can't stand, I feel like it's just very divisive and I don't really have the time for it, but the history of it and the workings of it is just fascinating to me. And that's why I connected with this so much. Seeing Mark Gooden, Oliver North's campaign manager, try and weave his way in and out of these talking points of like, okay, we need to talk about this. We need to really hammer home this point in the debate. It's just great stuff. And you see Oliver North trying to build up his support, taking on the incumbent who is trying to stave off allegations of his own right. You see just the mental chess that both campaigns are doing to try and say, like, take out the independent candidates. There were actually two independent candidates who were trying to run for this seat, and they both dropped out. So that was also fascinating. And there's just so much going on in less than an hour, in just an hour and 45 minutes. The movie breezes by. The Washington Post reporter was kind of annoying. He just had this kind of arrogance about him that I just didn't care for. But otherwise, this is just an incredibly well done documentary. I'm giving this one a great rating. I didn't care for the reporter, but everything else I just thought was fascinating. And there are parts of it where I was just saying to myself, I don't know whether I should be happy or sad that politics has always kind of been like this. World of fiction, and we take a look at one of the true cult classics to spin out of 1996, a little film called The Cable Guy.
Jim Carrey, Matthew Broderick, the Cable Guy.
Okay, I'm going. Take off.
The Cable Guy was directed by Ben Stiller. We all know who he is, both on screen and off screen. And it starred Jim Carrey, Matthew Broderick, and an incredibly young Jack Black. It tells the story of a recently single man named Steven, played by Matthew Broderick, who calls for his cable to be hooked up, and in walks in Chip, played by Jim Carrey. The two end up finding a bit of a friendship with each other until the friendship becomes a bit too much for one of the parties, and well, the scorned don't like it too much. Basically, Steven tells Chip after a while to get lost, and Chip doesn't take it too well. This was a movie that was initially panned by critics on release, but as the years have gone on, this has gotten a pretty steady cult following. And this is one that I had seen a few times, and the more that I come back to it, the more I do like it. It's not perfect, it's not my favorite Jim Carrey movie by a lot, but I do appreciate certain aspects of it. Number one, Jim Carrey is just great. Like, no one was moving in the mid 90s like Jim Carrey, just from his stuff with In Living Color to his entire 1993. Ace Ventura, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber all came out the same year. Again, no one was moving like he was moving. And you just get a lot of the character work that he is able to accomplish. He's not just impressions and funny voices and Fire Marshal Bill. Like here, you actually do feel sorry for the guy. However, you also get the sense that even though you feel sorry for him, we all either know a Chip or have had a Chip in our lives, like at least once in our life. I've had one. The deeper into the rabbit hole the friendship goes, the more boundaries are crossed, the more you realize, okay, this started out as friendly, but now it's getting weird, weird, weird. Okay, we're firmly in weird territory. You need to quit it now. Which is a perfectly respectable thing to ask for, but, well, yeah, Chip don't like that too much. And that's where the movie just goes completely off the deep end. My biggest problem is just the big tonal shift that happens at the certain point because it goes from ha ha comedy lighthearted to just thriller with just no change whatsoever. And it's not a straight up thriller, but it reminded me a lot of that movie The Gift with Joel Edgerton as director. That movie was just scary. It was a thriller. I don't consider it horror myself. It's horror to certain people, but it's more of a thriller than a horror. Point is, that movie is a thriller throughout. With the Cable Guy, it feels like, okay, we're in a Jim Carrey comedy, and then we just go straight into something different, something way darker, with seemingly no real purpose behind it. I don't know. I just feel like the movie needed to pick a lane, either be serious or be funny, and you could do both in certain cases, but otherwise just pick a lane. That's my point. And ultimately, I'm going to give this a good rating, but a high good rating. It's definitely not the best, but it's definitely underrated in certain aspects. And like I said, Jim Carrey was just on top of his game in this era.
Morgan Freeman in the remarkable story of one woman's unbreakable spirit. Moll Flanders.
Moll Flanders was directed by Penn Densham, and it starred Robin Wright, Morgan Freeman, and Stockard Channing, among others. It tells the story of the daughter of a thief named Moll Flanders, who is being told the story of her mother's life. Her mother, the real Moll Flanders, played by Robin Wright, was born into a very, very rough life and just has to find her way to take care of herself and the daughter that she eventually has. 20 minutes into the movie, I said to myself, this is Princess Bride. This is literally the same structure as Princess Bride. There's a child, in the case of Princess Bride, Fred Savage is sick, and here, Moll Flanders' daughter is being led somewhere and Morgan Freeman's telling her the story. So it's the same setup, more or less. So it definitely loses points on originality in terms of structure, but there is a lot of stuff to like here. Robin Wright's good. Morgan Freeman is especially good. It's just maybe I'm just a Morgan Freeman fan. I don't know. All that I do know is that I just really liked seeing him here. And there was just seeing all of this go down, like just seeing it's very much a one step forward, two steps back kind of movie because Moll Flanders gets ahead and then behind and then ahead and then behind. And then you just see it and you just go, man, she just cannot catch a break. And she never truly does. So the movie definitely loses points in terms of originality, but it's also pretty well done. It's a really effective period piece. I'm going to give this a good rating, but a high good rating again. There's stuff to enjoy here, and it's definitely one that's off the radar that I would recommend. Now we get to one for the families. You get to Disney Renaissance era, and we get to take a look at The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Discovering the magic within himself. The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
The Hunchback of Notre Dame was directed by Gary Trousdale and Kirk Wise, the team behind Beauty and the Beast and Atlantis: The Lost Empire. Now I know why I love this movie so much. And it has the voices of Tom Hulce, Demi Moore, Kevin Kline, and more. It tells the story of, well, Quasimodo, played by Tom Hulce. This is based on the legendary novel by Victor Hugo. Quasimodo is a hunchback who lives in the bell tower of Notre Dame in France. He is watched over by the domineering Reverend Frollo, played by Tony Jay, and all that Quasimodo's ever wanted was just to be out there, like living a normal life, but for obvious reasons, that just can't happen. Frollo is an absolutely terrible person and just uses the Bible for all of the wrong reasons, even getting it at the wishes and the whims of one Esmeralda, voiced by Demi Moore. The Disney Renaissance era is one that I have not really talked about a ton on this channel. I'd like to remedy that one day, but the point I'll just leave it with is this. This was Disney in its prime. They were just hitting on all cylinders in terms of family entertainment. They were so big in this era, they opened not one, but two studios, Touchstone and Hollywood Pictures, to just make more stuff. Like they were that big. Top all that off, the animation was just they were just delivering all hits and no misses. 2 years prior, they had done a movie called The Lion King. Some of you may have heard of that. The Hunchback of Notre Dame, however, kind of gets swept under the rug, and maybe it's just because the quality was so good that just even the lesser stuff, like, is just really good. This is a weird one, though, because The Hunchback of Notre Dame is one of those movies that I've always loved. But I feel like its only real sin was that it came out during a really loaded time for Disney animation. I mean, Lion King was 2 years old when this dropped. So that memory is still fresh. And another aspect is that this movie's definitely darker than a lot of the Disney Renaissance movies. They were definitely dark. I mean, like Mufasa's death, anyone? But Hunchback of Notre Dame, like, there's just some dark stuff here. Like, pretty much anything involving Frollo is just terrifying to me. Like, rest in peace to Tony J, just giving a phenomenal performance here. And he just completely, like, just carries the whole movie. And Tom Hulce is very good. Let's not get that twisted. When he sings the Out There song and he holds that high note, it's just beautiful stuff. Like, that's who you get to voice Quasimodo. You get Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. You got epic songs, you got beautiful animation, you got a great story. There's just so much to love here. I just feel like it was a bit too weird to live, if that makes any sense at all. It's a bit too dark because I feel like if this came out in a later era, it would be like it's already lauded, but maybe even more so than it already is. But for my money, this is getting an amazing grade. It's one of the best to come out from this era during a time where Disney just had the golden touch. And to close things out for the month of June here on the project, yeah, there's no easy way to get around this one. Let's just rip this band-aid off. Let's talk about Striptease.
Striptease.
You're Mrs. Grant?
No, I'm Barbara Bush.
Who is he? George Bush.
Striptease was directed by Andrew Bergman and it starred Demi Moore, Burt Reynolds with no mustache, we'll get to that, Armand Assante, and Ving Rhames, among others. It tells the story of a woman named Erin Grant, played by Demi Moore, who loses her daughter in a bitter custody battle to her terrible ex-husband, played by Robert Patrick, and his terrible facial hair. To make money, she becomes a stripper. However, she gets entangled into a very complicated web of crime involving a congressman, played by Burt Reynolds, and a police detective who wants to help Erin out, played by Armand Assante. This movie has a rather dubious distinction in that at the Golden Raspberry Awards, this was awarded Worst Picture. It was nominated for many other awards at that ceremony, but it won Worst Picture, and Demi Moore won Worst Actress. What especially stings is that Demi Moore was paid in the neighborhood of 12.5 to $13 million for this appearance. And keep in mind that around this time, Demi Moore was hot as fire. She was in A Few Good Men. She was in Hunchback of Notre Dame, like I just talked about a couple of minutes ago. She was in Beavis and Butthead Do America, which I'll cover a little later on in this year. G.I. Jane, like she was everywhere. And she was a hot property. This payday alone made her the highest paid female actress in the world for a time. And they should have gotten their money back because she is not good in this. Demi Moore is a great actress at times, but here she's just unlikable. Like, not unlikable, but just she doesn't really give a good performance. Like, she's just kind of there, really. I just sit there and I think to myself, 13 million for this. Why? And that's not the end. Like everyone else is just unlikable in this too. Robert Patrick is unlikable. Like Burt Reynolds, good Lord, what was Burt Reynolds on in this? Not only does he have no mustache, like what is going on with this? He looks like Marlon Brando from Superman. But then there is a scene where he just plays a horny congressman. And there's a scene where he covers himself in baby oil. He wears cowboy boots, his underwear, and a cowboy hat, and he sniffs the dryer lint that Erin Grant like washed her clothes in because he wants to do it with her that bad. What am I supposed to do with this information? It's just so bad, and it just like everyone's annoying. Well, with two exceptions, Armand Asante is good, and Ving Rhames is good. Ving Rhames is the highlight of the movie. Like he's a bouncer with a heart of gold. He reads the Wall Street Journal. He concocts a scheme where he puts frozen cockroaches into yogurt to get some insurance money by suing them. He's the highlight of the movie. The movie should have been about him. But everyone's just annoying here. The story's just too complicated for its own good. It's just dumb for the sake of just being dumb. And the movie tries its hardest to say, like, people in our institutions are, like, bad people. Like, some of them are really bad. Like, yeah, we already kind of know this already. Like, what are we doing here? And it was just a waste of 2 hours of my life. This movie is horrid. It's not the worst, definitely not by a long shot, but this one was a big old chore to sit through. What did you think of any of the movies I've talked about? Let me know in the comments. I would love to read what you have to say. My name is Ryan Cam, and just don't watch Striptease.